Hey everybody, Dubby here with another Stratego game analysis. This is game number 25 of our Mystery Player series with the flag up front. After 24 games, we're 22 and 2. And in game 25, we're playing a Silver Miner, 353 ELO. He has a really good win-loss ratio, so I'm betting this player is probably a gold level player, mid gold level player. If he was a platinum player, he'd probably be like 40 and 4. But 32 and 12, probably mid gold level player, just trying, with a new account to see how well he can do. So let's see how we do in this game. When you play someone like this with a few games with a pretty good win-loss ratio, you don't want to use your standard setups. You want to mix them around. Use some random switches in your setups. So, and just in case he's a scouter, this guy's probably not a scouter. Most players aren't scouting, but he might be an alias, and he might have seen you play before, and you don't know how he plays. So he could have an advantage, and you don't want him lottoing your setup if you use your same setup over and over and over again. So it's always a good time to, it's always good advice to change your setup every time you play a different game. Move some of the key pieces around, the spy, your bombs, your top pieces, so they don't get an effective lotto and beat you. All right, let's see how we do in this game. I'm very pleased to be 22 and 2. When I started this series, I was hoping to win 20 games. I thought I would be scouted at least 2 to 4 times, 2 to 5 times in the first 2 moves for losses, and then I thought maybe I'd be rushed on my flag side and lose a couple games, or maybe I play a platinum player or a high gold level player alias and get a tough game and lose. So to be 22 and 2 is very good in my opinion. I don't think I could play another 20 series like this and go 22 and 2. That's really good playing. It's really hard to play with a flag up front. So let's see how this game goes. We probably could skip this. Let's see. I think in most of the games I play A4. I don't like playing mirror setups. I just have a hard time playing mirror setups. But I'm learning to play J4 with a flag up on J4. So we're going to get started here. And I gave him a couple chances to win. I'm hoping this is his strong sign. That was a misclick. So we find a lieutenant in the front row. So yeah, 32 and 12. That's a pretty good record. But I'm 22 and 2 with the flag up front. That's even better. All right, so he's coming down here. I'm hoping he's a Marshal Blitzer. Then they're pretty easy to beat. Especially if my flag's over here and he's blitzing over here. That's great. So I always try to protect my bombs. I always hate it when scouts, sergeants, and miners find your bombs. And especially when you have an open flag, you want to protect your bombs as long as possible. We've seen that in the series. I protected my bombs a lot. And then in the middle game and late game, we've had people run their generals, colonels, marshals into my bombs. So always try to protect your bombs. One thing, if you know, I have a bomb here because I try to make my setup symmetrical, but normally I wouldn't have a bomb here, I don't think. I'd probably maybe have it one down because I don't want it to be scouted. But because I have a flag over here, I try to make it look like my setup is symmetrical because so many beginners have symmetrical setups. And you'll see bomb a lot with, maybe not a lot, but uh, usually with bronze players, silver players, a lot of them do have bombs on the top row wings here. So that's good. I got a lieutenant. I don't mind a lieutenant. And so now this is great that he has a bomb here. I'm so happy. I can play a normal game now. When you find a bomb, I can absolutely play a normal game. I don't have to have my major sitting here anymore. So I'm hoping this side is totally bombed off because then I have the best spot available to have a flag here. That's probably the last place he'll look. So he had a scout here. So maybe it's not bombed off, but a lot of times when they have a bomb here, it can be the weak side. Doesn't have to be, but a lot of times this might be the junk side with a lot of bombs. And he's aggressive over here, so this could be his high side, where the marshal and the general colonels are. So I'm not so sure I would do that. A lot of people bring in their miners to just take a bomb. When they find a bomb here, I think that's a waste of a miner. I would not do that. Your miners are very important, especially when you're going to play tougher players late that will get to the end game. You want to have as many miners as possible. And most of the time when you take a bomb up front, you're going to find a sergeant. So I think that's a waste of a miner. So I like letting them use their scouts up. Okay, so now a lot of times I'm figuring that my captain's gonna die. So this is probably he's probably hoping that I think this is a high piece, and then that he'll come in with his colonel and take me. And since I don't know what this is, you know, this could be a marshal, this could be a spy. So if this is my marshal, I might not take his colonel, or if this is my general, I might not take his colonel because I don't know what this piece is. But when you play better players, a lot of them, well, you know, it's a captain. They'll just go forward and see what this piece is. They want to know what this piece is, and then they can make a plan to attack, counterattack. So, and you see that often here if you have like the major spy marshal trap. And I talked about this in one of the earlier games. If you have a known colonel here and then you bring a piece down and you might, you know, make it a spy, a lot of top players will just take their major and hit that piece and hope it's a spy. So it's very risky to do against top players. They will sacrifice their captain or major to find out what that piece is and then get ready to counterattack. So I decided to find out what this is. I want to know if this is the marshal or maybe it's a spy. See what he's got going on. And it was a bluff. So this piece now is probably not a bluff. So I'm going to lose my captain, but we're going to find out what this piece is. Now remember, when you get trapped between two pieces and one is known and one is unknown, you always attack the unknown or let the unknown piece attack you so you get information. Okay, now it looks like we found really found the weak side here. When you have two bombs, it's always good when you find two bombs early. And that kind of confirms that this is a weak side. So So it's not bombed off, so that's unfortunate. So we found the general and the colonel. And since the general was here, I decided to take the lieutenant. So now this is going to tell us something about these two pieces. If they don't attack me, I'm hoping this piece attacks me. This might be a captain or lower. And this could be a high piece. And it looks like he has all his high piece on one side. And usually when you find two bombs like this, just like with my side, you find a lot of bombs. So he might have an open flag on this side with all his high pieces. So let's see what happens. And so this is kind of a tell here. He moved a scout down here. So I'm kind of upset because he's probably going to find out my bomb. And like I said, you always want to protect your bombs early on. He's going to find two bombs, just like I found two bombs. Maybe that's why he wanted to test this, because he had a bomb here too. And or if it was a good piece like a colonel, his general could come in and maybe snag it. But that tells me that this piece here is probably less than a captain. It might be a captain, and he doesn't want to swap because this is an unknown captain and this is a known captain. So he might not want to swap because he has a little bit of an advantage. Same here. But what we do know is that neither one of these pieces is a colonel or major, because there's no reason why he wouldn't want to take the captain with a colonel or major. And this could be a bomb, and this could be the marshal, since I think all his high pieces now are on this side. And then, or else it's less than a captain. But we do know that both of these pieces are probably not colonels and majors. So those are the things you have to look for when pieces don't attack your pieces. So now he has his scout here going to attack my bomb. So what I want to do is do a bluff here with his known colonel and hopefully make him go down. And then I can fork both the colonel and the scout, and then hopefully the colonel goes down. But even if he goes over this way, then I can go up and stop the scout from finding my bomb. Like I said, you always want to protect your bombs, even if you have to sacrifice some pieces. When you have an open flag, you definitely want to protect your bombs as long as possible. So I move over here. Now, you wonder what my opponent is going to do. I'm thinking, well, he's either going to attack me or he's going to go down. But he does something different. He decides to check out my bomb. I thought that was interesting. So I thought that was a interesting play on his part. I guess maybe he didn't think this was a high piece, and he wanted to know what this was. But that was kind of risky, gambling his colonel. But then maybe he found a bomb here. Maybe he thought, well, this is my weak side, and I didn't have any strong pieces over here. So that could have been a good guess on his part. So now I do something a little strange here to mess with his mind. I decide to, instead of running back here and hiding, because the colonel will probably chase right in and maybe take me, I decide to chase the general to see where the general will go, or to see if the general will attack me. It's just a test to see what the opponent will do. And now, if you're in this situation, I moved next to the colonel, and I didn't take you. But then I moved up next to your general. What do you do? This is very, very tricky situation, especially when you start playing high-level players, because they're going to mess with your mind. This could be my marshal. Let's say this was my marshal. If I did that, would you run away, or would you risk taking this piece? Because you might think, well, why didn't he take my colonel? Right? If this was my marshal, why didn't he get an easy colonel? Why did he risk not getting the colonel and chasing the general? Well, if this was my marshal, and I move here, and he decides to take me, he loses the game. He's going to lose his general, and his colonel's trapped. I could probably bring the general over and capture the colonel. So it's really, really risky for this player to attack this piece, even though the chances are it's probably a bluff piece. But this would be a really good move if this was my marshal moving over. Don't take the colonel right away. Move up and see if you can get the general, because he might decide that this is a bluff, and he'll attack you, and you'll get the general, and then you'll have the colonel trapped, and then, when most people lose a general and a colonel, the game's over. So, but my opponent, he didn't want any part of that. He didn't want to guess if this was my marshal, so he decides to run. And so now what I'm trying to do now is I'm already thinking ahead. A lot of times when people have the general and the colonel here, I'm going to try to get this colonel with my general. I'm hoping I can trap it maybe with my scout and my general, or I'm hoping he goes back to this side and tries to go next to a spy with, let's say, a general here, spy here, and a colonel here. And then hopefully I can bring my general over and up, and then hopefully my opponent doesn't have any scouting pieces left to scout my general, and then my opponent has to make a decision. Is this my general or is this my marshal? And if he guesses wrong, he loses his general or he loses his colonel. So since I'm bringing up my general, if he doesn't attack me with his general, he loses his colonel. So that's what we're going to try to do. So I want to see where the general goes. I'm chasing the general up here, and the only goal here is to I want to try to get rid of some of the other scouting pieces he might have. He had one scouting piece over here. He's used 3 over here so far, so he might have a couple more scouts on this side. So now I'm backing my captain out of the way. I don't want my captain to get taken by the general. So this piece is probably a garbage piece, scouting this. I was hoping it was going to be a scout, but then this would have been trapped. So that's kind of good that it was a sergeant. So now we're bluffing again, chasing the colonel. And I'm hoping I can either trap the colonel with this piece and my general and get the colonel, or I'm hoping what I want is maybe to get another scout, to have him waste another scout, and then get his colonel to run back to a standard general, colonel, spy, defense position. Now, if you watch Max's channel, Silverhammer, when he plays, a lot of times he has a general here in one of his setups, a colonel, and a spy. And that's fine. That's good to have. You don't want to be lauded by a marshal and lose your general or colonel. But the problem with that defensive position is when they find your general and they find your colonel, and you don't have any more scouting pieces left to see what's coming down, you don't know if it's the marshal or if it's a general. And a lot of times, if you watch some of his games, when Silverhammer plays, when Max plays, they'll bring down the general to get the colonel. And it's a 50-50 decision. Do you want to risk your general to attack an unknown piece? Because if it's a marshal, you're going to lose a general, and most beginners are going to lose if they lose their general. So that's the problem with the general, colonel, spy defensive position. One thing you might want to do is have the general spy, colonel, and then have a marshal here. Maybe have a bomb here and have a marshal here, or have a captain here and a marshal here. And then if they come in with the general, you can take the general with the marshal. But that takes a lot of patience, and you have to sell it right, and it's a lot of work. And then you have to be able to play with your marshal in the back row or maybe in the second row. And that's a really, really tough trap to pull off. I haven't seen it very often, but that can work. Or you might want to have a general, colonel, marshal. You know, Max might want to try to do that, have a general, colonel, marshal. But then there are some players like myself that don't mind trading the marshal. I'll take the general with the marshal, and if he has a spy, that's fine with me. I'll play with my general and spy against your marshal, and I think I can make a pretty good game of it. So, but that's the dilemma you have when you have the general, colonel, spy defensive position. All right, so now we have the colonel here and the general's here, and we're going to try to chase this colonel here. And see, this is the advantage when they don't know where your high pieces are. So this is why it's so important to keep your high pieces hidden as long as possible, because then you can always bluff with any piece on the board. So this piece was a scout. So when we moved our captain here, this piece didn't attack and this piece didn't attack, and it's because it was a scout. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to try to find his scouts, because I always hate it when I bring up my general and it gets scouted and then you can't get the colonel, and that always sucks. It ruins your plan. So I'm still going to try to bluff the colonel here. And we're getting our general in position. So then I decide, you know what, we'll just go after the colonel and hope he goes to the spy position. And I'm glad I got rid of the scout. So now, this is what they call a huge blunder, because he just lost his colonel. Unless his marshal is over here, he just lost his colonel. What he should have done is moved his colonel one space forward, and then he would have been able to scout my general with whatever this piece is. But because he moved this piece forward, he's going to lose this colonel. So this was, it doesn't look like a blunder, but this was a huge blunder. He won't be able to check my general. That's the mistake he made. So he's going down here, and he's saying this is his spy, right? General, colonel, spy. He doesn't know what this piece is, but he's pretty sure this is a high piece. Now, my only problem is, what is this piece, right? This piece was here, and it moved up here. And I have to worry about a marshal. And I'm thinking, what are the odds of a marshal being here? With his general was here. I forget where his colonel came from. His general was here. I'm thinking the chances of the marshal being here are very, very low. Because when you're playing silver players and you're playing bronze players, you have to have your marshal usually on the first two rows to stop from blitzers and to stop from lottoers. So you don't find too often marshals on the third row, and especially the third row wing. If he did that, that would be a great move, and I could say, congratulations, you got my general. But the odds of this this is more like a platinum player play than it would be maybe, if this guy is an alias, a mid-gold level player play. So the odds of this being the marshal, I would say, are almost 1%, maybe 2%. Now, if it was a platinum player, it'd be a lot higher. But I didn't think too long at all. I'm thinking I got his colonel. So, and it turned out to be a minor. And then I'm thinking this is not a marshal either. It's just rare to have players have marshal, general, colonel, all next to each other. But of course, I think in the beginning of the game, I have them, you know, near each other. But the marshal's up on the top, not down at the third row or fourth row, bottom row. So I decided to go for it, and it's not, he doesn't take me. So now, would you gamble and take this and think it's a spy? I would not. You know, there are a lot of bombs on the second row here, and his general's over here, so his spy could be somewhere else. So it's not worth taking this piece to see if it is a spy. But what you want to do is target this with one of your scouts, which is why you want to save your scouts till the end of the game. This is a perfect example why you want to save your scouts, because this could be a spy, and now you have a target to go after with scouts to see if it is a spy. But now, since I got his colonel and my general is known, I think a good idea would be to swap generals. That's always a good idea when you got a pretty good lead, and you know, colonel is pretty good. I'm down a captain, but I'm up 2 lieutenants. So, and I'm down a sergeant. So this is a pretty good idea to swap. So that was a captain. So that move up here was a big mistake on his part. It didn't give him a chance to check my general coming in. And like I said, that's always a problem with the general, colonel, spy defensive position. You have to have scouting pieces to know if it's the general or if it's the marshal coming down, or even a bluff piece. You know, you could bring a bluff piece down and just sit there, and then you can keep the general and colonel trapped. So that's always good too. So then your colonels can attack your opponent's side and not have to worry too much. So now, what do you think this piece is? If you watched our series here, usually in big moments, like when you swap big pieces and your opponent is losing. So you swap big pieces on the board and your opponent is losing. What piece do they usually move next? This is always an easy tell. They usually move their highest piece on the board. His highest piece is a marshal. So we can assume this was a marshal. And remember, when I moved my captain here to take the lieutenant, he didn't take me. So that's another tell. So we have 2 tells on this piece. So this is telling me this is probably his marshal, and I have to get ready for a lotto attack. So these are the things you have to think about when you're playing. And there's a lot of information, you know, and you have to have a good memory to remember all this stuff. But slow down and pay attention and try to think what your opponent is trying to do. And a lot of times they tell you stuff when they don't attack, and you got to remember that information. So, like I said, this was a big moment. We swapped generals. He's down a colonel. He's feeling desperate. He's probably, you know, he probably is not confident playing down a colonel. You know, some platinum players can, it's no problem for them to play down a colonel as long as they're ahead, but he's down a colonel and he's behind. So, you know, then you have to worry about lottoing. So we can assume this is a marshal. And then I have to get ready and start moving some pieces here. And we decide to move our captain out of the way, go around this way. Now my opponent decided to attack this piece, and maybe he thought my general came from this side because it came up this way, and usually when your general is on a particular side, usually the spy is most of the time on that side too. But unfortunately for him, my general started here. And so the really good players can remember. It's very hard to remember because there's so many pieces. But the really good players will remember where this piece came from, and it came from this side, my left side, not the right side. So he might have been better off attacking this way, But then he might have thought this was the junk side with a lot of bombs, so maybe he decided to go this way. But anyway, he decided to attack this side. I moved my colonel over for safety, and it was the marshal. And we get a disconnect. So he was a sore loser. Don't do this when you lose. Just quit. Don't waste people's time. Time is so valuable. And you know, if people do disconnect on you, you can report them, and they'll. If you should record your games, you can report them, and they'll lose ELO points, and maybe they'll get banned for a week. It's really rude to waste players' time. So now he's 32-13, and let's fast forward here to the end. We get the victory screen. So that's the end of the series. The game, I know I talked a lot in this game, but it was only eight minutes, but there was a lot of information in here. So our final ELO ranking in the Stratego Mystery Player series with the flag up front was 349. So I almost averaged 10 ELO points a game. We finished with a record of 23-2. Like I said, I could play. I think I could play do this 100 times. I don't know if I could ever get 23-2. I was very lucky, very fortunate. If this is the first game you've watched in the series, and you're a beginner to Stratego, I encourage you to watch the whole series, because I think each game highlighted several techniques and tactics and Stratego patterns and a lot of mistakes and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And I think it will really help you become a better player, and then it'll speed up your time to becoming a gold and maybe a possible platinum player. And then I'm gonna probably work on another series. I'm thinking about doing a series where I rush up, where I lotto my 3 majors. I think I'm gonna have a series where I have a major on the left, right, and middle, and I'll just attack everything that moves. And then maybe I'll even lotto them. And then we'll see how I can play down 1, 2, or 3 majors. See if I can win with the information and lower pieces I capture. I did that earlier in a couple heroic battle games where I played against the Probe Stratego game. And I did fairly well because I understand how Probe plays, so it wasn't that hard to beat. But it is hard to play when you're down, 1, 2, or 3 majors. So I might do that as a series. And I still have a lot of games archived that are very interesting, that have some good information and can help. They'll probably be good tutorial videos. And I might continue playing with a flag up front to see if I can get to 600 ELO. So I'll probably periodically show some of those games. But I don't play that often now. I just don't have the time. But anyway, I hope you liked the series. I think it was pretty informative. It turned out much better than I thought. And I hope you learned something. All right, bye for now.